Going down, it's your boy Juicy J. Our hustle is our hustle, man. That's what you're watching right now. It's going down.
Poppers, Kendrick Lamar, my dude Rambo. All hustle. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Hip Hop Report. My name is Rambo Hustle, and today we'll be discussing the Cam'ron and J. Cole interview. I just finished watching the interview, and I'll be honest with you, I respect J. Cole. I recognize his talent as an MC, as a lyrical artist, and I respect his decisions. I love how humble he is about his art, about his career, about his relationships within his career. And I think there's value to that. I think there's a lot that artists can learn from that about generating real, true, authentic relationships within the industry. And obviously people are going to critique this interview because everyone always has a critique of everything, and everyone has an opinion, and everyone has a take on how they feel this happened or this happened. But really, to understand why people are opposing his obviously genuine and authentic feedback to Cam'ron's questions, you really have to be honest about what hip hop has always been. And it'd be different if J. Cole was a little bit younger and wasn't in tune with hip hop to the point where he should understand these things. He should have a very clear cut understanding of hip hop, its culture, its artistic dynamics, and why and what people would expect, which is probably why he put himself in the position that he did, because he understands that as a rapper, as a lyrical artist, as somebody who is extremely talented at what he does, that the culture in itself, his fans would expect him to respond. They would expect him to not say nothing, regardless of what the question is. I guess, where I land with this whole situation personally, I've always appreciated J. Cole. I wouldn't say that I'm like this diehard J. Cole fan. Obviously, I have a working relationship with Kendrick, and if you would ask me at any given moment, I consider Kendrick my friend. However, when I look at it from a fan perspective, and when I try to dissect this from a cultural competition, which, hip hop traditionally, historically, has always been a competitive sport. The concept of sparring through words is a historical normality of hip hop. We've always known artists and rappers, just like anything else. You could talk to Game and he'll tell you that he expects anybody to say they're the best and never to take a step back on that, which is what's really interesting about, a lot of the fans don't understand that. Your average person that will probably watch this video, your average person that's on YouTube, your average person that is just a fan of the music isn't really privy to, especially on the Drake side of things, right? Which I would say that the J. Cole fans are probably half and half, because that's what I'm seeing on the internet. That's what the demographics suggest based on who these artists are. And that's not a shot at being mixed or anything like that. That's just, I assume that there's a large majority of really humble, down-to-earth fans of conscious rap, hip hop fans that love J. Cole and also love Drake. And then there's other fans that love J. Cole but also love Kendrick. What's very important to notice is the difference between those different dynamics, and why a fan would go and lean more towards the Drake side and why a fan would go and lean more towards the Kendrick side. And that's pretty much just comes down to what you understand hip hop as a culture to be and what you would want your artist to be like and handle this situation. Now, one of my biggest questions now, after we asked our first questions from last night and our main three questions heading into the interview today, was what happens if Cole is able to compete and respond to Kendrick in friendly fashion with friendly fire and not necessarily have to be personal? What if Cole becomes a leader in that three-way battle and showcases the ability to compete lyrically with music without going below the belt? Does that mean that then Drake takes takes that lead and follows suit and jumps into that. And now we have a potential run of records that come out and are friendly fire from each of these artists, which then allows them to showcase their skills without attacking each other's character, right? And I understand J. Cole was just coming off tour with Drake, and he had these 2 records with Kendrick and 2 records with Drake on the project. But even as he said, he wasn't even excited about the project, which makes me feel weird because, look, you have the features you want. You're doing what you love to do as an artist. You have literally the freedom to create whatever you want, to put it out. You now own your masters. Like, there's all these amazing assets that we gain once we get to the higher pinnacles of our careers. And so often we tend to overlook those. I love the quote that says, remember that what you dreamed about back then is the life you lead today. And I feel like in some ways Cole maybe lost track of that, and I think it's easy because the music business specifically is kind of a cutthroat business, as we've come to know. And I think that makes it really hard for artists to really, push out the narratives and live out their lives the way they want, especially in an industry that requires you to always be going for more and more and more and more. But, again, my thing is, what if J. Cole is able to be a leader and to be the guy, at least in that moment, that says, okay, cool, like let's spar. You want to spar? Let's spar. Why did J. Cole feel like he had to, because he said in like that, Kendrick didn't say anything disrespectful. He didn't say anything that made him feel like he was disrespecting him or attacking him, and rightfully so, because he didn't really. He was just challenging him to a friendly game of rapping. I mean, what if Kendrick was gonna challenge him to play ball? What if he said, hey, let's play a game of 21? Drake, Kendrick, J. Cole in a game of 21, let's see who wins. That would be entirely different from this, but it shouldn't be. Kendrick has even been on interviews saying, hey, this is just friendly fire. This is just being competitive in a field that I want to be the best, but I want the best for my people also. So I'm challenging you guys to come and bring your best. That happened in the Control verse where Drake, out of 10 different artists, was the only one that took it personal, and Jay Electronica later on, but it happened again here with J. Cole. Why did he feel like he had to go attack his catalog? Which, the reason why he wanted to pull it back wasn't because he felt away. He felt away because it wasn't received well, because what he was saying about Kendrick wasn't factual. It just wasn't factual. It wasn't that you didn't mean it. It wasn't that it wasn't in your spirit to battle, even though, from my research and what I've seen and what we know, J. Cole is not battle tested. J. Cole is not the conscious rapper that can also battle rappers. Unlike Common, who obviously we saw can go at people's neck and take his shots as he needs to, as he battled Ice Cube. He went after Drake. So, what we see missing from Cole is the killer instinct to actually defend himself and to hold his own when the game is on the line. He had the opportunity to compete with the best of his generation, and he just wasn't able to. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about this guy that, and again, look, I'm not saying I don't like the guy. I'm not hating on the guy. These are just the facts. The facts is he was challenged to the game of 21 and he backed out. Drake stayed in the game and he lost. That's just how it actually happened. And as much as we would, personally, I don't think the Jay-Z comments about battling are accurate. I think he's just deflecting. And again, the answer to my previous question today was, why would that interview with GQ come out? It served no purpose. His shows are going to sell out. His album's not even in the works. Like, what was the point of Jay-Z releasing that interview? That interview seems like something that just they put together randomly on the fly, because it serves no real purpose, honestly, in the grand scheme of things. Jay-Z is not a person that does things randomly, or like everything has a purpose, everything has an itinerary, and this seemed like, hey, I'm going to come out here and basically cut some slack for my boy because this was my artist at one point. I respect him, and he's catching a lot of heat. So, hey, GQ, can we get on the horn real quick and do a little quick interview? Just send me your guy. I'll come meet up. Whatever. We'll get this out and get the ball rolling. You know, to me, it seems like a distraction from this interview. This interview was bland. I felt like at no point did Cameron, because of his relationship with Drake, he says he's friends, but again, you know, these guys are saying friendship, and then later on something comes up, and then Drake goes after your girl on her DMs, and then he's claiming you guys are friends, and it's because you go on the internet and claim this, and then now he thinks you guys are really friends. And by all means, Cameron and Drake may be friends. Mind you, the Cameron doesn't seem like the guy with much backbone at all. However, I would say, and I would argue that Cole and Drake's relationship, let's just break it down like this. It seems more from what Cole said, that Cole and Kendrick have a very close personal relationship. Their girls hang out with each other. They know each other's kids. They spend actual personal quality time together and share personal experiences and life stories and experiences within each other's life. Cole and Drake seem to just have a close relationship based on their tour, their music. That is called a business relationship. Kendrick and Cole seem to have a friendship. And what seems to be the problem, and probably why we'll never get those records unless Jay-Z steps in and saves the day, is because Cole ruptured the agreement in between both business relationship and friendship. When in reality, loyalty suggests that Cole should have aligned himself with friendship, not just because of this friendship, but also because Cole respects hip-hop. And Cole represents hip-hop. And who represents and is hip-hop more than Kendrick Lamar? A guy that has been able to make records that not just speak message, speak conscious, but also hit. He's able to do everything that you can do and that this guy can do at the highest level without sacrificing his artistic integrity. That is the problem. The problem is that, yes, Drake can make hit records and he can rap. He can rap maybe better than most rappers. We can accept that. We can say that. And even though most Drake fans would never give that credential to anybody on this side, specifically over here, we can say that. The problem is that his demeanor, his person, who he is as the history of his life isn't the same as somebody who you would deem a representation of hip hop right here. Okay? So what happened really was that he couldn't fathom putting either of those guys on the fall off. Because if what he's saying is true, if those features exist and he still loves those guys and is friends with both of these guys, then there's no reason why Cole couldn't release the fall off with those features. So to me, I'm just gonna go on a limb and say that the Fall Off was supposed to be one album, but because he lost 4 different features by his own merit. Maybe Kendrick won't release it. Drake probably will definitely not release it. But the fact is, he tried to play the fence. And when it comes to friendship and loyalty, you can't play the fence, or you will lose all alignment with all connections and all networking. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Look, at the end of the day, we respect Cole. We love his music and we love who he is as a person. I love the humility. I love the apology. And I like how he handled all of these interviews. But how you handled that situation was incorrect. Okay, if you want to play the fence, then play the fence, put out the records, put out the features, let everything be everything, but don't come on the internet and lie to us about why things didn't come out and not mention, okay, what's happening with the features? Where are the features? What are you going to do with them? They're just never going to see the light of day? Well, I thought these were your friends. Why wouldn't, if they're really your friends, right? Because that's the thing. I can think I'm friends with someone, but somebody else will ask them and they'll be like, yeah, I don't fuck with him. So we can't be, one of the most important things, and one of my favorite things that Jay-Z said in his interview is he lives life the way based on how his perception of life is based on how the world is, not how he wishes it to be. J. Cole should probably take that advice and stop talking like, oh, well, I love those guys. Those are my friends, at least from my perspective. Look, when all the beef was going down, why didn't you get on the horn with your friends and call Kendrick? Why didn't you get on the horn and call Drake? Why didn't you get these guys on a three-way and squash shit? That's what a leader would do. That's what somebody in a position of power would do that says, I don't want this to go where it wanted to go. He bailed after throwing the stone. He pulled back the stone. And he didn't stand by anything. He didn't stand by the guy who he had a business relationship with, and he didn't stand by the guy who he seems to have a genuine, real friendship with. So yeah, you're not being loyal to either of the guys. You're not holding your own. You're not holding down your people. And this is the result of somebody who gets that. Your people told you to go after it and be the champion that you're supposed to be. The fans told you to go after it, and then when you didn't, or when you tried and it didn't fall the way you thought, and you pulled back, guess what? Everybody turned on you. And you know what? It's the right thing to do. I could have told you that was going to happen because nobody respects a quitter. It doesn't mean you have to go and pull fake punches at Kendrick and his catalog. It just meant you had to compete in friendly fire the way that he has always expressed that he wanted to do. It's disappointing, man. It's disappointing because at this point, I don't know when we'll get to hear from Cole. But I'll tell you one thing. For Cole fans, the way that his album was received, the way that these interviews have been received, can almost guarantee you that you will hear from Cole much sooner than you would have if he would have just sailed into the sunset and nobody would have raised any red flags around the way he was rolling out any of these media appearances or his album in general. Just remember, you gotta be true, you gotta be loyal, and you gotta be honest, even if it costs you everything. With the Hip Hop Report, Rambo Hustle.
It's going down, it's your boy Juicy J. My hustle is our hustle, man. That's what you're watching right now. It's going down.
Poppin', Kendrick Lamar, my dude Rambo. Hustle.